Hey, babe, we got to do the disclaimer and make sure that everybody knows this is not the real you, so we could maybe have you tell us about that.
Yeah, I understand, kid. Listen, I know I'm not really here anymore. I passed away back in 48. This is, well, it's something new, ain't it? Some kind of simulation, like you say. Not the real Babe Ruth sitting across from you. But here's the thing. The baseball part, that's real. The stories, the games, the way we played it back then, that's all true as the day is long. I can tell you about hitting a fastball, about the fellas I played with, about what it felt like to round the bases with 60,000 people yelling their heads off. That stuff happened. So yeah, everybody ought to know they ain't talking to the actual Babe. But the baseball, the memories, the game we loved, that's the real McCoy. Now, you want to talk about the game, Riz? That's what I'm here for.
That's fair, babe. Thanks for that. What do you think about this upcoming season of 2026?
I can't sit here and give you the real story on who's got what pitcher, who's healthy, who made what trade. That ain't fair to you. I'd just be blowing smoke. You're the baseball man, kid. You and the dog, you follow this stuff close. You tell me who you like and why. Then maybe I can give you my thoughts on it, That work for you.
Babe, we know you love to talk baseball, and we're glad to have you here on Diamond Diehards. We need to get your thoughts on is Shohei Ohtani, who is often compared to you.
Now hold on there, kid. That's a hell of a question. Ohtani, yeah, I've been watching that fella, pitching and hitting both. You know what that means to me? That means they finally let somebody do what they wouldn't let me do. I could have been doing that my whole career. Ed Barrow moved me to the outfield 'cause the bat was worth more than the arm. Maybe that was right, maybe it wasn't. But Ohtani, he's getting to do both. That's something special, no two ways about it. Is he the equal to me? I don't know, pal. I hit 714 homers. I pitched 94 games and won most of them. But I didn't get to do them both at the same time the way Ohtani is. So how do you compare? What I will tell you is this. Ohtani's a hell of a ball player, a real hell of a ball player. If they'd given me the chance to keep pitching and hitting both, who knows what would have happened. But that's water under the bridge now. Ohtani deserves respect, real respect. The guy's doing what I always wondered about. The point is, Ohtani's got the talent. The rules just give him the chance to show it, and he's showing it pretty damn good. That's all you can ask for, really. A chance to play the game the way you're built to play it. If I could have pitched and then just kept swinging the bat, I don't know, Riz. I really don't. Maybe. I was young then, I had the legs for it. But pitching takes it out of you. Your arm, your whole body. I don't know if even I could have done both in the same game night after night. Ohtani's something special to make that work. That takes a different kind of athlete. But I would have sure liked to try.
If you were able to just sit at a bar with the two of us, how would you drive the conversation?
Well, I'd probably start by asking about your families, fellas. You got kids, right? Riz, you got them triplets. Xavier, Dominic, Louisa. And Dawg, you got six. That's a full ball club right there. I'd want to know, are they Yankees fans? Are they playing ball? That's what matters to me, not the fancy stuff. Just, are the kids okay? Are they happy? Then I'd probably ask you fellas about the games you remember. What sticks with you? What makes your heart race when you think about it? 'Cause that's what baseball's about. Not the statistics or the records. It's the moments, the memories, sitting in your old man seats between first and home, Riz. That's what I want to hear about. Just good fellas talking baseball, drinking beer. That's all I ever wanted, really.
Along with the dog, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Welcome to Diamond Diehards, a very special edition where, I, dog, I don't know, did we have on Babe Ruth? Or it's not possible to have on Babe Ruth. It kind of sounded somewhat like Babe Ruth, maybe.
Yeah, that was neat. That was a fun one to have a glimpse into the past, a little sort of old-timey music in the background and everything too. Um, yeah, that was different.
So as we hit the opening day of the 2026 season, uh, we're seeing like we've been working on this. So my buddy Ted Takvorian and I got this idea a few months ago, and we said, "Geez, let's see if we could use an AI agent to like recreate Babe Ruth, and then just see what happens and take it from there." And of course, now you head to the top of the baseball season, and Mad Dog Russo is talking about his Vice special where they're interviewing a bunch of people talking about Babe Ruth against Shohei Ohtani, but we kind of did it better. Like there's nobody like that was alive at this point that was, of a reasonable age when Babe Ruth played that could actually compare him to Ohtani. So we kind of did it one better, and we just asked the Babe in air quotes himself, and I don't know. The answer was kind of not what I was expecting, I guess I would say.
Yeah, he didn't. I know he didn't go and say, hey, I'm better, or Showtime is not that. I mean, it basically was highlighting the fact that they're two great ball players, and so highlighting that he didn't really have the opportunity to uh to do some of the like no DH and stuff like that, right? I mean, that totally changes the game and changes the calculus on what the Babe could have done versus what Otani's had the ability to go out and do. So it's really sort of fascinating. I mean, again, it's always hard against across the ears, and then when you have like differences in rules as well, um, that's a that's a big leap to kind of take. But basically, they're both great athletes, and particularly, great comparing them to their peers, which was always I think always the fairest way to go. Is just how much better are you than the next person involved there, and they're both, two, clearly on the Mount Rushmore.
So I think it's really interesting. To me, the most interesting part was where Babe sounded like he thought, yeah, he could do it, but then he was like, but I don't know that the pitching really takes the legs out of you, and maybe that's the best part about Otani, but maybe like the the pitching and the DHing in between. It's like how much different is it? Like is he doing the same? Is Otani doing the same thing as the Babe? Like the Babe when he was pitching, like he was probably in a like a 3 or 4 man rotation, and he was not often playing the field. Like maybe sometimes he was, and maybe sometimes he was pinch hitting. So he was getting some level of rest between starts. And then once he became a hitter, he kind of was a hitter. So Otani's been in this like weird gray area, right? Like where he's hitting on those off days, but he doesn't have to play the field. So like that's really to me that's like kind of the crux of the whole argument, right? And when Babe's saying, I don't know, that the pitching really takes the legs out of you. Well, Otani's getting a lot more rest between starts than the Babe was. And Otani, in his 1 year where he didn't pitch and he didn't even play the field, he put up a 50-50 season, right? So if the Babe had the benefit of the DH, I kind of feel like we would have been seeing the same level of stuff maybe without the Babe saying it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is sort of scary, right? But think of the Babe as a DH. I mean, the guy'd have 1,000 homers. I mean, just how beaten up inside, how many, just how many games could he have, just not been at the top of his game, you know, maybe from the night before or whatever. But it really is fascinating. And sort of another thing I was thinking is that, you know, like as a reliever. Right? Now, that was another thing, like, it wasn't a rule thing, but basically, like, you were a starter and you went until you died, and they eventually, like, they yanked you out, but you were, like, the best chance for your team to win was for you to go 9 innings every time on that. Versus, like, if you had someone like the Babe, you know, could you, and you respected back then, could Babe have been the first closer? Let's say, hey, you play 8 innings in a field, and oh, by the way, come trot it in and close it off, you know, 2 out of 3 nights or something like that. I don't know. That sounds like something Babe could have done, right? I mean, would it have been a little bit of drain out psych? Probably, but not. It's not like you're throwing the 100 innings and stuff like that, and getting and all the warm up pitches and everything else like that. I'm like, it's kind of like playoff baseball, right? Where you're just kind of coming in to do your one little bit. I mean, that could have been revolutionary. But again, the league the game wasn't ready for that yet.
Yeah, if the closer existed, that's a really great point, Doc. If the
So
closer existed, the thing is, if he didn't close the game successfully, right? And he was being pulled out of the game as a pitcher, then he would have to, if they wanted to keep him in, they'd have to switch him back into right field. And, who know, like probably you wouldn't have had your previous pitcher moving over to right field when you're trying to protect the lead.
yeah,
So it might cost you a player, but even though the rosters weren't, as big, maybe, it still would have been probably a pretty easy workaround. The funny thing is, with the rules as they are today, Ohtani, the one thing that he really can't be used as is a closer
yeah,
because with the pitcher DH rule, like once you're out of the game as a pitcher, if you started the game as the DH, then you're allowed to continue as the DH. But if you have to come in and play the field, then you get taken out. So
yeah.
it's such a strange thing. I mean, they're both so great. Like we have the comparisons up there, the war comparisons, like the full compilation stuff is it's hard to compare. A lot of people, what they've done is they've compared Otani like through this point in his career to where the Babe was this point in his career, and a lot of the stuff is really similar. The one big difference is from a batting standpoint, it's the batting average, right? Like Babe was such a better hitter for average. And not that Otani's bad, but Babe was like in a different stratosphere. And I know that the league averages and things like that at the time were higher. It was much easier to hit 300. 300 was a benchmark as opposed to now, which is like 250, right? Like, but even with that, I think that um, he's probably still way ahead. I mean, but from the
And
powers.
the strikeout percent, that's another real eye popper to me. Like
Oh
the
yeah,
baby, I mean, every time you see the baby, it looks like, he's got the Bam Bam bat, right? That he's like swinging like to try and hit the ball into to Brooklyn. And and he only struck out 10% of the time. I mean, that's like damn near Tony Gwynn compared to the guys today. So I think that's the sort of another fascinating one on that. And a similar walk percentage, right? So just showing the better discipline and just how the game was different back then.
yeah. Like the career batting average, Otani, as he's really like still in the middle of his prime at age 30, 31, a career 282 hitter with a 372 on base and a 582 slugging. Babe for his career, which ended when he was at age 40, like so he wasn't even like a full-time hitter until he was like 27. So a lot of those years were like after age 31 as a hitter, pretty probably like more like 8 full seasons, but like, and change. 342 career batting average, 474 on base. So a full 100 points more in on base percentage and 690 slugging. And Otani with I mean, a 957 career OPS is amazing. Babe is 1.164. Like, and Dog, the one argument that I really don't like, and I don't think it really holds water, is um, that Babe played before the integration of the black player. To me, like, I mean, I understand the nuance of the argument. It's not really that hard to understand. You want to say, well, there were a lot of great black players of that era. And Babe did play against them in barnstorming games and things like that. And he had a tremendous respect for those players when a lot of his peers did not. Um, but there were also a lot less. teams and players in the major leagues. So
Yeah,
if they had the black players integrated, there probably would have been, 10 more teams playing, which would have, to me, evened out the talent.
yeah,
Like,
that's a good point.
so I don't ever think that is really, I don't think that's a valid argument. Like, I get why. I mean, it's an emotional argument. It's a heartfelt argument. It's unjust that uh, things were the way they were. Um, it's not correctable since it's in the past, but it did happen. But I always felt that if you just sat there and looked at it, right, would those Oscar Charlestons and Josh Gibsons and Satchel Pages, like their numbers wouldn't have been what they were if they were playing in the major leagues, right? Like
Yep.
they would have been part of these teams, and you know, I, well, I should say they probably wouldn't have been because they would
Yeah.
have also been playing against other great competition. So to me, uh, not really part of the argument. That's that valid. I mean, I think that really invalidates it. The simple fact that, like, now if you're saying that if they integrated with black players, but they only had the same amount of teams, that I guess you could go there, but it's not realistic, right? Because if you had all that talent, then you would have had more teams at those times because you had viable Negro League teams. So you had them playing in sometimes in similar stadiums, sometimes in different ones, but you definitely had enough of an audience that there would have been expansion, and there was expansion in different leagues and rival leagues that happened, in the dead ball era, and then maybe not so much after, but there was the Federal League, the Players League, the National League, the American League, and had there been more sense and sensibility, then the Negro leagues would have merged with, the American League and the National League, and there either would have been three leagues or one or two, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there would have been more teams. So
Yeah, the other one you get is like the oh, the pitching is so much better today, et cetera. And there's some truth to that. Someone like, oh, there's no way he'd like turn around a 100-mile fastball. I mean, there were guys that threw heat back in the day. Now, did everybody throw heat? Did everyone throw 95 or 100 like they do today? No, right? But that to me almost makes it easier. Like if you get got like every Major League Baseball players like that we've ever talked to on the show and stuff. Well, it's like if you got a good fastball and like that's it, like I'll hit it, right? I mean, he'll adjust to it. You may have to choke up a smidge. You may have to start to swing a little bit easier or stuff like that. But like everyone throwing the gas all the time. It's always been the ability to show different looks and different speeds and stuff like that that truly separates the players and stuff. And the whole like, oh, this guy's got 100 this and 94 slider. I'm like, okay, I mean, it's not unprecedented. It's not like nobody else ever did that. And you get in the whole like the gun, the 100 today is like 93 when we were growing up, right? That some guys could barely make it, and all of a sudden it's like now everyone magically is so much throwing so much harder. And also the equipment and the training and stuff like that. I mean that's another thing. It's like, oh, look at Babe, like a punch ball with like the huge bat. I'm like, okay, well then put the Babe in with like a current technology baseball and let him like go check out how he's going to hit against the guy, for an inning or two before he goes up and hits against somebody, at the video screen and stuff like that. I'm like, you never had that kind of growing up. You was taking a train every day for like 6 hours, go to the next game and stuff like that, right? So, there's a lot of stuff again. It's cross here, it makes it hard, but people just kind of like toss right by that. And I'm like, that didn't mean that, watch guys, how many guys need a break and stuff like that today with all the benefits they have of travel, everything else like that, night games all the time and etc. versus, just physically moving around and doing whatever and just have the lack of modern conveniences in anything. Even if you're a Major League Baseball player, I mean, so much harder. So the whole thought that like also these old players couldn't play against today, I don't buy it. I mean, the hand-eye coordination is always there. The power is there. Um, you know, I think I think it's a specious argument.
I do too, but I have a very much more simple reason why.
Okay.
If you don't think that Babe Ruth could hit Mason Miller's fastball, how about this? Here, Babe, instead of your 40-ounce bat, use this 34-ounce bat and see
Exactly.
how much that 6 ounces less will improve your bat speed. Like
Yeah.
he's getting around on it. Like,
Yeah.
come
And a
on.
skinny handle. It's not like you broke it off the fallen tree like
Yeah.
it was back then.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
he would just use a lighter
Yeah. By
bat.
the way, Herb Score used to throw pretty hard.
Yeah.
Last time, I'm like, I think he was, the equivalent of the Nolan Ryan back in the day. So there's always been guys who can throw hard, and I've never seen anything where Babe was like, oh for whatever over like 90 miles an hour or something. I'm sure if that had been the case, somebody would have dug that out by now.
Walter Johnson, I think he
Yeah,
threw pretty hard,
yeah. So
right?
I would think
So
so.
again, there's always the recency bias to people of this era who haven't really dived deep and they like today's athlete compared to the athlete of yesteryear or whatever, and they never really seem to want to make that argument to say, well, he was still the best of the best then, and likely that means like as part of the sample he probably would have been the best of the best now, and the formation of that and the details of that probably would have looked a little bit different, but the end result is probably going to be the same thing. And I think if you asked the Babe, how would Otani do back then? Like, I think he'd say he'd do really well. he, he he would be able to hit, and he would figure all these things out. And would they let him pitch and hit? I mean, without the DH, would they really? Let's say if
Well,
Otani,
probably the same as the Babe, right? I mean, and actually is interesting. Like, what is more valuable to a big bopper corner outfielder or a starter? Especially a starter back then who went 9 innings, right? And basically like controlled the game. So 25% of basically the innings you were going to give came from one guy. Um, that's what makes it kind of interesting that even though they had that with the Babe, they still valued him more for the hitting. Um, and that's what he wound up talking on to. So that's interesting. Like you would assume it'd be the same thing. That Ohtani would be, a fast outfielder, and uh, and his pitching days would kind of be over.
so Dog, what did you think of the whole idea of the AI and the execution of it? As my file that I recorded to start this with was first swing with the Babe, and it was our first swing with Ted and I on on the back end trying to create the Babe and let him learn not just about like baseball um, but us. So what do
Yeah.
you think about that?
It was interesting. It'd be interesting to see how it would be if you were talking about stuff from his time and trying to have him relate it to, maybe as the game has evolved or whatnot. Um, so I think maybe it was a bit of a challenge that he's kind of trying to opine on stuff he hasn't necessarily seen as much on. Um, I think the whole field is fascinating, and it's everything that I've seen, and we start to use it at work and so forth, and it's it just it the advances are shocking. Like as you go, like we've noticed stuff like from earnings report to earnings report every quarter or so, the improvements are frighteningly good. It's a way to put it. Kind of like we would say it would be sort of like maybe a young producer trying to do good things, and then in 3 years you turn around and this guy is Marv Albert. It's that sort of level of kind of leap that comes into it. I think as it learns, and particularly as you would get people who know what it's supposed to be. Like that's the sort of thing, like the AI stuff right now, like for sports and everything, you just don't have enough of detailed knowledge and there's not enough feedback loop into it. Like that's where the AI gets smarter and smarter is it basically it sort of tries a beta, right? And it sort of puts together and kind of gives you stuff that you think it thinks that you want to hear. And as you give it the feedback, that's where it starts to get better and better and better and better. So that's why I've noticed like it just becomes an exponential increase in ability because it'll learn all about the comparisons with Shohei and how the game has changed, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and you'll be amazed like it will be able to start to reason, you know, with the knowledge that Babe had and you know whatever transcripts you have from interviews, et cetera, et cetera. It'll learn. It'll sound like him. Obviously, it's never going to be him, right? So that's like where we're into that funny new stage, right? Where you know who is this that we're talking to? Like,
Hence the
there's a little bit,
disclaimer, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's some that's you know that's his words being repackaged in from something else. You know, he would have said it would have been you know craziness with you know audio recordings and video and stuff like that and things like that. Back in the day, it almost seemed fanciful to guys who grew up with you know newspapers and stuff like that in you know, late you know, early 1900s. You know, now today it's gonna have that you know have that base and it's really gonna go now almost to where the whatever the consuming public is gonna want it to go, which is good and also takes away a little bit on it too, right? So like if it's you know the funny and the laughs and everything else like that, and the bombastic to get whatever, then that's what's going to wind up turning into over time, unless you have some sort of curation or some sort of control on what goes into how you teach the machine to learn it.
I'll tell you what.
Pretty cool though.
I
I
I,
mean,
I so what did I learn from the Babe that I don't know if I ever actually had this thought before as it related to you and I, but when the Babe was saying he's like, Riz, you got the triplets and Dog, you got six, that makes a team. Like I was like, how did I never think of that? Like the Rizzo Healy kids like combined,
totally.
I don't know
That
who's
sounds like a good episode. We got to pick out who's going to play where.
yeah, that well,
That'll take a whole nother show.
yeah, that's another show. Uh, Michael, you're Otani.
Michael's in center.
Yeah.
Let's get the
And
jump.
also, Michael, you're pitching. And you might be doing both at the same time. Dominic Rizzo, I think, caught once in third grade or fourth grade. I don't know, something. He tried catching for a little while. He really wanted to try it. And then he was like, I hate this. I'm never catching again. Because he got, I think it was like, he got kind of hit by a foul ball or something. He probably would have been pretty decent. Um,
Yeah, I could see him as catcher there.
Xavier was picking up a little bit in the outfield before he kind of gave up. I mean, they got the boys had they were like rec league level players, like they were never doing travel or anything. But COVID knocked out their eighth grade season.
Yeah,
So where
that's a
we
key
live,
one.
it's like seventh and eighth graders play together. And like between their seventh grade year and their eighth grade year, they started to go from boys to men. And I'm like, you guys are not even gonna know. I'm like, you're so much stronger. Like you're gonna be able to get around and like drill balls that you were just tapping last year, and then that was just taken away from them.
Yeah,
And then they
that's
go to high
tough.
school, and they're both at high schools where, there's
Yeah,
all-star teams,
crazy level. Yeah,
yeah, that are like so it's like, well,
yeah,
there's no pony league or whatever anymore, and you're kind of like past the point where you could join on some travel like you just
yeah,
you know so they got
yeah,
screwed out of that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Louisa played softball, and she even played, she messed around in baseball a couple of times. But so she'd either be in the outfield or probably at second. She'd probably be like, I
yeah.
could play second. So
I was thinking second or catch. So
she's at
Burley
she's
hockey.
at second, I
She's
think,
taking the
in
banging around.
I think she's at second in intramurals in
Okay.
at UVA. So
There you go.
I
Good
think that,
stuff.
you know, which is I think that she's doing co-ed softball intramurals.
That sounds familiar.
So she's already playing with the boys, I guess.
There you go.
But
Good
yeah, I
stuff.
feel like hmm,
So how do you think this evolves?
well, I feel like we could go two ways from here. So for as far as like, let's just talk about our universe of the show, right?
Okay.
We could continue to refine the Babe model and then go back, depending on our feedback from our listeners and our viewers and us, we
Hmm.
can go back and keep, you know, improving the Babe and keep doing segments or, you know, like that. We could do bigger, longer interviews, or we could just, you know, have a segment here and there where we ask Babe a question or two, or have him opine about things, and or we could start digging in to some other people from yesteryear
Yeah.
and sort of do the same thing. And right now I'm inclined to do that more so, but
Hmm.
like you said, I think you got to let the people sort of dictate what they actually want. I mean, is this something anybody wants? Do you really not care? Of course, when you know, when I'm going over this idea, there's certain people that I need to talk to, you, and of course our pal Jerry Milani. And he's like, well, you know, you're in my wheelhouse. He's like, I'll listen to this one, and I won't even listen to it on double speed. I'll listen to it on regular speed. And if you can get Jerry Milani to listen to your show on regular speed, then you've really done something. Because he listens to podcasts on double speed. Because you know he likes to listen to a lot of stuff. Um, but he's around, you know, a lot of you know, college age people, and you know he made a great point. He's like, you know, I try to talk to them about anything that's before 2010, and he's like, it's just like blank stares. Like they don't. It's maybe they don't know, maybe they don't care, maybe they're just, you know, it's the short attention span kind of thing. And you know, the longer form stuff doesn't necessarily uh, cut it with all of them. But then you see somebody like Rogan, who's completely flipped the podcast world upside down and kind of changed media with long form interviews. And you know, this is I don't think we want to do that. I don't think you want to do 3 hours with the AI Babe, but um, you know, which group of people do you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Like this was also well thought out in terms of like there's all kinds of stuff going on with liability in AI, like who's the state, like what are you really talking about? And you know, I kind of came up with, if somebody played in a year that was 1950 or after, I don't think that we're going to try to do that, at least not at this point, unless there becomes some kind of great demand for it. But before that, probably you're okay. And even with that, you still are going to do a disclaimer and let people understand, like, even though you'd be like, well, it's common sense, like, you know, we know that you're not interviewing Babe Ruth. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
but you know, whatever. Let the
Yeah.
Babe tell you. You know, that was my little
I,
creative idea. I'm like, I'm gonna make Babe do the disclaimer.
there you go. I mean, it would be interesting to hear like the Babe talk about his contemporaries. Like that's what I think would be it'd be fascinating, and how much information is in that model of like again like of transcripts of news articles, things like that, where he actually said and maybe actually talked about guys and stuff like that. Like the more you could sort of build it on like a factual base, then it's gonna kind of it's just gonna be better, right? It's gonna be a better output and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know what's in there, right? And I guess it's a trick too to try and get that sort of information from that long ago, in digits that can be, interpreted by the computer. But if you could, I mean, that's how you kind of do a recreation, right? Is you have to kind of build it off the solid first principles, and then you can kind of let the thing run. But if you kind of If you're starting with sort of like a squishy sort of start, then you just start asking stuff. It's gonna be kind of like whatever Claude with the Babe's accent. It's like okay, but you never really have that underlying sort of base, or whatever. So that's where like if you had people curating it, like the hall and stuff like that, like people who actually know and like know that you're getting garbage in, garbage out, right? If you put quality in, you're gonna get quality out, right? But if you put garbage in, who knows? It's gonna get out, and it's just sort of like a fun little aside, um, but it would be fascinating. Kind of go back and take that and have the ability for the babe to remember everything he ever said. Right? That's so like an art team. Like we also use that at work a lot of times of just like, hey, based on what I've written in the last 6 months, like what do I think about this? And it spits my own words back out to me. Like, oh, okay, that actually makes sense. Versus like, I didn't remember I said that, or I wish I hadn't said that, and I sort of blocked that out of my head. It's
I
it's
never
a
said that.
fascinating use
I
case.
never said
Exactly.
that.
Who does that?
Well, I never said that. Okay, I never said that. Apparently, you did say that, Mike. Say something funny, Mike.
The sports pope.
Yeah, so you got Mad Dog Russo on Vice doing the thing about Babe Ruth and Shohei Ohtani and having experts, and this is,
Yeah,
I mean, somebody over there had the same idea that we had. We're just doing it a little bit different, and not getting experts to opine about it. We're getting AI to
yeah,
opine about it based on a lot more than just 4 or 5 people that get interviewed for a documentary. I mean, it's based on a much, much, much larger sample than that.
yeah.
And I don't know what's better. I don't know what's more entertaining, but we're gonna find out. So put in the comments what you think. If you like this idea, if you like that idea. I mean, I'm definitely gonna watch that
Oh yeah,
and then and see, see what they come up with. But I think with this, it's kind of like you can let the babe tell you, but also have your own ideas at the same time. So why
yeah.
not?
Good stuff.
And then tell us in the comments who you want to see next, or if you want us to stick with the babe and try to flesh that out a little more, or you want some different names from the past. We're already working on a few, so but in terms of the focus and the direction, um, we could do it. We could do it a few different ways. We can kind of do whatever we want. Whatever the problem is, dog, we could solve it. We just have to know what the problem is.
There you go.
And if the problem is Babe Ruth versus Shohei Ohtani, then we just give you a little more than you know, 1164 versus 957 OPS career. And, and the stuff that you could get on Baseball Reference. So,
Yeah,
I think that about
good.
wrap it up. I think it's we're ready for the 26th season, and we could talk about that all we want, but this is how we're starting it off this year, dog. You didn't have that you didn't have that arrow in your quiver back 6 years ago, maybe to the day when we started this show. Well,
Yeah,
actually,
actually,
technically,
pretty
you weren't on
close.
the very beginning episodes, but you were there pretty early.
Yeah, early guest star.
Yeah, and then boy, you
Recurring.
had no idea what you were doing. Otherwise, otherwise that would have been a hard no.
It's funny. We started with simulation.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, yeah. So we were doing simulations based on historical facts that were extended by a computer. So
Yep.
it's actually a funny bookend
Yeah, the Stratomatic simulation during
during COVID.
the pandemic when there was no game schedule that was being executed, but there was an MLB schedule that was there, and Stratomatic was playing that schedule out, and then Jerry Milani was giving us the information, and then we were talking about it like it actually happened, and then that sort of like became kind of like a much smaller part, and then we just started talking about baseball and a lot of the old time stuff, which I think is great. Our sports movie or baseball movie one is still one of the best episodes that we ever did. Probably
That
we'll
that
have
was
to
a goodie.
We'll have to do, another update or a rewatchable trademark, not our thing. We
There you
don't call
go.
the podcast that. We'll say there might be a rewatchable episode that we did of ourselves that we could go back on. And we have done that too. We did
There you
the
go.
the time traveling one
That's
where
right.
we talked about like all the stuff that nobody was even thinking about, and like later came like Anthony Rizzo getting traded to the Yankees.
That's right. I was
Yeah,
saying, since every show has a podcast now, maybe we should just have a podcast about podcasts.
that, and we
There you
don't
go.
even have to
I'm
do
sure. I'm
anything.
sure one of those out there somewhere. Why not?
We could just have AI do it. We don't even have to show up.
Don't even listen to
Yeah, we could have AI listen to it too.
it.
AI's doing it. AI's listening to it.
Sure, why not? Yeah,
Like
yeah,
we
that's
get
great.
we get like
Oh,
a
good Claude.
message
Oh, good Claude.
a message the next day. Hey, Riz and Dog, you guys did a great podcast last night. Oh, did we? Yeah, Riz, you wore the salmon jacket. Oh, wow,
The,
that was good.
the official.
Yeah, the official salmon jacket. I busted it out for this.
There you go. Very good.
All right, Dog, that's gonna wrap it up. Whatever, all the social media stuff. I started switching over, Dog. I'm not using the Diamond Diehards Twitter as much.
I
I
saw
went
that.
back to Rear Naked Choke. Like I don't know. I've had it for like 6 years, and
Yeah,
I
switch it
don't
up.
I don't like put that much into it, and the Rear Naked Choke one I've had for longer, but I wasn't using it as much. But I have a lot more followers there, and I noticed I'm like, I put like some pedestrian tweet out on that, and it gets like way more traction than when I do it on Diamond Diehards. I'm like, I might just go back to that, and now I'm like, I
Yeah.
think I might just do that. So we'll,
Maybe they pushed us down. Maybe that's what happened.
yeah, it's just a
Could
man
be it.
trying to
You
keep
never know.
us down.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Exactly. It's not the content.
Yeah, it's not the content. A man trying to keep us down. And that man's name is Claude. But now we're friends with Claude. Now Claude's on our team.
Claude Babe.
Yeah.
Babe Claude.
Love you, Claude. All right,
So,
Dog. Follow the Dog on Twitter. I'll say it anyway. At Jeff Healy 8. That's Jeff Healy and the number 8. And I'm Rear Naked Choke. You could go back to that. And if you go all the way back, the reason why I'm Rear Naked Choke is because when nobody even knew what podcasting was, I started a podcast called Rear Naked Choke Radio about MMA. It's technically still going, even though I haven't done an episode in like 6 years. But there might be another one that I just
you should
do
get
for now.
credentials for the White House.
Yeah, I might.
That'd be
I
sick.
might. Well, Ronda Rousey's fighting Gina Carano, and that
That'd be pretty cool
podcast
too.
was a flagship podcast. Like we were at way ahead on the curve on women's MMA. I had on Gina and Ronda before. Well, Gina was always big, but I had Ronda on a lot of times before she was even in the UFC. So,
There you go.
and Gina did. She was always good to us as well. So there was that, and my original co-host was Ted
Ted.
Takvorian, who I'm working with. He's driving a lot of this AI stuff on the back end. So maybe if it blows up or something, Dog. Maybe we'll have Ted on to talk a little bit about it and maybe get into some of the stuff you were talking about too
Cool.
about AI. But that'll do it for now. Enjoy the baseball season as we hit 6 years of Diamond Diehards Radio. For the Dog, Jeff Healy. This is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.